If you clicked on this video, you must be in the market for upgrading your audio setup to a better one. And today, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. Here I've got the Atom A5X speakers along with the Atom Sub8 subwoofer combo. Hey guys, my name is Stanley and welcome to Superpower User, a TechTube channel focused on hardware reviews, computer builds, and tutorials. If it's your first time visiting and this sounds interesting to you, you might want to consider subscribing for future videos. About 3 years ago, I found myself in the market for upgrading my computer speaker system. At the time, I was rocking out a Logitech Z5500 5.1 surround sound system, and if you guys know, that was a pretty awesome computer speaker system back then with a big 10-inch subwoofer. It certainly got loud enough and the bass was certainly thumping, but the clarity and the quality of the sound just wasn't there. So that's why I was in the market looking for something better. The A5X I've got here was what I ended up buying, and the Atom AX lineup spans from the A3X, A5X, A7X, and A8X. The A3 and A5X are two of the smaller speakers, and while the 7 and 8 are naturally the 7-inch and 8-inch bigger ones. The A5X I've got here is considered a Nearfield monitor, which means it should sit relatively close to the listener. The A5X features a 5.5-inch woofer that's made up of ROSL, carbon, and glass fiber, and it also features front porting. The front porting allows all of the air and pressure to exit from the front rather than in the back, so that in very small studios, like what I've got here, so the sound doesn't bounce off the back walls and amplify the echoes. At the top here is what Atom calls the XR tweeter, which is an acronym that stands for Extended Accelerated Ribbon Technology, not to be confused with the adult website. The XR tweeter features a pleated membrane design that increases surface area, and the design this design is known for its very high highs, and basically between the driver and the tweeter, you get sounds from 50 hertz all the way up to 50,000 kilohertz, which is why the sound range on the A5X is very dynamic. In the back here is where you have all your inputs, outputs, and level controls. You've got the option for an RCA unbalanced in, as well as a XLR balanced in. You've also got, in terms of control, you've got a high shelf knob, a low shelf knob, as well as a tweeter level control. You've got 2 holes for mounting, and at the bottom here you've got a power cord and a selector for 120 volts and 220 volts. The A5X has a feature called Stereo Link, which allows for a pair of A5Xs to work in a master-slave configuration, where the input of the Stereo Link is the other channel and the output goes to your other speaker. This feature allows you to control levels and to basically have the 2 speakers working in a left and right stereo configuration with very minimal setup. It's a very nice feature if all you're looking for is to have equal levels coming from your computer. Moving on to the Atom Sub8 subwoofer. This subwoofer is a little bit more traditional compared to the A5X, but it doesn't make it any less of a quality subwoofer. This subwoofer has an 8.5-inch woofer in the front with a port facing downwards and 2 controls in the front. The controls you've got are the volume control for the decibels and a crossover controls for hertz. Both of these controls are motorized, where if you change the remote that comes with the subwoofer, these knobs will change accordingly. So you can have the subwoofer out in the corner of the room, and you can change the settings on the remote without going over there to turn the knobs. It's a very nice feature. Additionally, the subwoofer and the speakers have an auto power off function where after a set amount of period, the subwoofer will turn off and it'll conserve power, and it'll stay off until there's another signal where it'll come back. There's usually about a 1 to 2 second delay, but once it's up and running again, it's good for a very, very long time before it shuts off again. So it's another very nice feature to save power. You do have the option to turn that off, however, in the back. Now let's take a look at the back of the subwoofer. Now, moving to the back of the subwoofer, you've got all your inputs, outputs, and power controls as well, just like the A5X. In terms of input, you've got RCA input left and right, as well as the option for XLR balance connections left and right. For the outputs, these outputs, again, RCA and XLR, but these are meant to feed directly into the A5X speakers. Also, you have the subwoofer phase control for 0 degrees and 180 degrees, and the auto on-off signal that I talked about previously. At the bottom here, you've got a power switch and a power cord option. All three of these speakers, subwoofer, are self-powered, so you have connection directly to the wall, and they're self-amplified. Another note is that the back of these subwoofers and speakers can actually get kind of warm when you really crank up the volume to the point where you probably don't want to be touching the back of this because it really gets hot. Overall, like I said before, the A5Xs with the Sub8 subwoofer is able to hit the very low notes as well as the very high notes and it's perfect for a small to medium-sized room. And that's where, when you compare it to the A7X, where the A7X has a 7 or 7.5 inch driver. It's the standard for the music industry, or so it claims. That speaker is a little bit bigger, sounds a little bit fuller and a little bit deeper, but it has no competition. It can't really reach the same kind of notes that the subwoofer does. So in terms of for almost the same price, you can either get 2 A7Xs or the 3 of these. I would actually recommend getting the 3 of these instead of the bigger A7X. That's just my 2 cents. What else do I want to talk about? So really, if you're in the market for a reference monitor speaker setup that is not cheap, but not ludicrously expensive, I think both of these go for about $500 for each speaker, and then the subwoofer goes for, let me double check, for about $900. Of course, you get these on a sale, you probably get the whole set for what, $1,500. It's a lot of money, but it's really not that ludicrous of a price. So, and especially for the quality that you get, I highly recommend it. If you're in the market for these kind of speakers. I almost forgot. What I got here is the frame, or something that the speakers are sitting on. This is made by a company called ISO Acoustics, and this is the Aperta model. It's a metal and rubber frame that this thing sits on so that you can isolate it from the table, allowing the speaker to basically vibrate and produce sound without being hindered by the table or whatever it's sitting on. These A5Xs don't have any feet, so it's kind of just sitting right on the table, and you really want to elevate it off the ground or off the surface that you've got it on. A lot of people have foam blocks that they use. I think Oralex produces very nice foam blocks where it's tilted, and you can put those on the foam blocks, works just as great. But went for something a little bit more fancy here. Looks pretty good too. Okay, so for the subwoofer, I've got a 200 version of the isoacoustic stand, and I actually took off the original feet that came with the Sub8 and mounted it on this stand. I'll make sure to link all of the stands and all the model stuff in the description below so that you can go check it out if you want to. The last thing I wanted to touch upon was the different subwoofers that Adam makes. So on the small side, you've got the Sub8, which is a 7-inch subwoofer with a front port, and that goes down to about 32 hertz. In the middle, you've got the Sub8, which is an 8.5-inch subwoofer that produces about 28 hertz, as I said before. And then a little bit bigger, you've got the Sub10, which is a 10-inch subwoofer. I think it's the 10 Mark II, that goes all the way down to 25 hertz. On paper, they don't really seem that different, but especially the Sub7 and Sub8. Originally, I actually purchased a Sub7 with the two A5Xs, and what I found was the Sub7 really couldn't keep up with these A5Xs, and when you turned up the volume, it kind of distorted, and it was just a little too much for that little 7-inch subwoofer. I guess what I've gathered is the Sub7 really matches the A3Xs pretty well, and I ended up returning that and picking up the Sub8. So the Sub8 goes really well with the A5Xs, and then if you move on up one level, you get the Sub10 Mark II, which goes really well with the A7Xs. So don't make that mistake. Don't pick up a Sub7 and try to crank out too much volume out of that thing. It's really meant for a small studio, especially with the front porting. The bigger ones have the down-facing porting. It's pretty much a world of difference when you really compare them side by side. So there you go. Basically, if you're in the market for speakers, in the $1,000 range for the A5Xs, and maybe a little bit more for the subwoofer, I highly recommend this set. I would really recommend you can go to your local store to go take a look at them, listen to them, or even rent them to try them out to see how you like it. You really won't be disappointed. If you find this video useful, make sure to hit that like button. That really helps us out a lot. And if you have any comments, comment in the section down below, and perhaps subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Anyway, we'll see you in the next one.